How and why did you get into whitewater rafting?
Mm. Well, thanks for the question. There's so many ways to answer that. As a little kid, I grew up in Richmond, California, and there weren't many sidewalks. There weren't many gutters. And I found myself, when it rained, walking up the ditches, the rain ditches with the water coursing along. And there was one route up to my elementary school that involved a creek bed, and I would often go out of my way to walk along that, literally with my feet in the water, walking up and down that creek bed. And every chance I got, I took hikes along Wildcat Creek, Alvarado Park in Richmond, and it's almost like for me the goddesses that the Greeks imagined as being occupying little pools and little rivulets in moving water. It's almost like they spoke to me. I was just I would just dream about being in nature and walking along streams and so on. So that's probably the beginning. But for instance, reading Mark Twain's Huck Finn just captured my imagination. I would listen to Moon River. I rigged a little device so that there was a little string and a tack, and the little thing that would feel for if there was another record. It was a Moon River, a single of Moon River. So play it, just the one song, and the little arm would come and feel. Is there another record? And it would hit the string, and so it would keep playing it over and over, and I would just go into a dream, maybe a fugue state, I don't know, and just listen to Moon River. Another beginning was when my brother and I and our parents were camped at Tenaya Lake up in Yosemite, and there were two logs that we pulled together, and we found a stick and a couple of nails or some string or something. Anyway, we managed to attach these two logs together, and we were so excited. As a matter of fact, just by pure chance, stroke of good luck, here's a photo of that very log. Yeah, I think this is me, this is him. I don't know if the photograph captures it, but we were in ice water. We played all day long in the ice water. We were probably hypothermic, but it didn't matter. We were so excited to have a raft. You could say that was, in a way, the beginnings of my love of moving water and nature and, floating rivers. How did I start whitewater voyages? I trained as a guide when I was 16 years old. Back then, the level of knowledge was quite rudimentary compared to what we have now. My whole training took about half an hour, and not the perfection of skills, but just the information. And a lot of the information that I got was turned out to be not exactly true. But nonetheless, it was the state of the art at that time, and I was introduced to it at 16, and I continued on guiding mostly on my own, taking friends and things. And then a seminal moment of kind of moving toward commercial guiding, dealing with the public, was I called all my friends and said, I'm going to run the Rogue River. It's going to be a 6-day trip, and the whole cost of it is going to be a shared expense. We all pitch in money. Is going to be $25 for 6 days, counting food, going up and back and everything, gas, everything. So a different time, obviously. And I was very disappointed in my whole circle of friends because everybody said, "Oh, that sounds great, Bill. I'd love to do it." And half of them said, "I just don't have $25." And the other half said, "I don't have the time." And so I thought, I've got to expand my circle of friends. So I inflated a $20 war surplus raft. It was my main raft at the time, 11 feet long. It had been designed to carry in an airplane, so if the pilot had to eject over the ocean, he would have that as his life raft. Good little raft, really. I took it all over the place. I took that raft, I inflated it, and leaned it against a tree on Sproul Plaza on the UC Berkeley campus. and I put out two signs. I'm trying to remember the exact wording, but one was in French, and it said, Radeau au lieu sauvage d'un radeau pneumatique, pas cher s'adresse ici. And roughly speaking, that said, um, uh, trips down wild rivers, cheap, inquire here. And I had the same signs in English, so that, but the French I was thinking maybe gave me a little more pizzazz or something. Just a steady stream of people came by, and I met all sorts of people. Some of them I had an intuition that I didn't want to be trapped on my little 11-foot raft with for a whole raft trip. But with a lot of them, they would just seem like great folks, and I met enough people that day to raft the entire summer and go down rivers all over the West. That was kind of the beginning of reaching out. Then I started running ads in the Chronicle at that time. Back then, the want ads. I ran ads that were worded something like, River Explorer Writer seeks people for expedition down um, the Salmon River in Idaho, or the Selway River in Idaho, or the the Fraser River in British Columbia, things like that. And people showed up, people called. So it was kind of moving toward being, reaching out to the public. And with everybody, I explained back then that I was doing exploratory trips. I love to do first descents. For me, they weren't first descents necessarily. There were other people had run them, and I do the research and make sure that that we had a good chance of survival, kind of thing. Although it was, it was different. It was a different time. Rafting was quite in its infancy, and I actually built this kind of into the trips where. If you went up like to the Klamath River, I remember we went to Happy Camp and inflated my raft, and people came up and said, "Oh, what are you doing? You're going to run the river? Oh, you can't run this river. It's too dangerous." And no matter where we went, rivers at that time just had the reputation. All the local people knew was that people had died in that river. And all of these rivers had people who had serious mishaps in those rivers, and often death. And so that we always got warnings. In some strange, for some strange reason, I just thought, you know what, this adds to the adventure. And so, and of course, it would definitely add to the adventure for the brand new people I was bringing with me down the river. And anyway, we we would pump up the raft and launch down the river. And some rivers here in California I did repeatedly, but I was always wanting to go further and further afield. Partly because I had in mind writing my first book. As a matter of fact, just by a stroke of luck, I have a copy here. Whitewater Rafting, published by the New York Times. In preparation for that, I went all over the place running rivers, so I could write about them in the book. And I also went around and talked to people who were known to be experts in the field, sort of legendary river runners. What I did with each of them was to, contact them and tell them I was writing a book, and would they like to be included in the book. And by golly, they all wanted to be included in the first book about whitewater rafting. And so I had a tape recorder, kind of an old clunky, big tape recorder that I put on the table, wherever we were sitting, and started that up. And then I also took notes. But what I found in talking to all these experts was that they all did know a great deal about rafting, but they didn't necessarily know what the others knew. And also by then I had been spending my summers rafting, and I had a little bit of guiding, and then many summers, and it was about 11 years that I did this private private boating or semi commercial with advertising for people. I thought I was experienced. Compared to what I know now, I knew very little. I was so lucky to survive my ignorance and some of the mistakes that I made. So anyway, so that gives you a little glimpse of how I got started.